Hi, my name is Cherie Moore, and my TED Talk is titled Life Without Dad Is It Terminal? We're going to be discussing the consequences on children of growing up with their father absent. This is a picture of my dad and I. It was taken when I was 4 years old. It's a very precious photo to me because my dad is older, he has dementia, and I grew up without my dad most of my life, and this picture kind of tethers me back to the knowledge that at least at one point he delighted in me, he was with me, and he cared for me. I was 11 years old the day my dad walked out the door for the last time. He gave me a handful of Tootsie Rolls, a goodbye hug, and as he stood up, my first experience with trauma, as he slapped my mom hard across the face and said, "This is for the kids." I remember that moment 40 years later as though it were yesterday, the hard jerk as my mom's head snapped back, the barely contained rage in my dad's voice and the way he opened and closed his fists, breathing hard as he looked down at her. My little brothers sat on the floor crying. I was stunned into silence as my dad turned from his family and opened the door to a life that until that moment felt largely secure, and stepped across a threshold that was separated completely from his family. In the coming years, I remember only snippets of him. He disappeared for a full year with only one phone call from Florida, and when he moved back to a nearby town years later, our relationship was measured by a handful of hours every other weekend at best. My brothers and I detached from him. We felt the heavy pain that surrounded him. He had never wanted the divorce, and it seemed like he was bound by chains of hatred towards my mom. His laughter, his vitality, and the strength he had had before were just wiped out. He was consumed with his anger toward my mom, and we were afraid of him. A hard distance set in. My brothers and I accepted the new map of our lives, but we did not thrive there, in that land without a father. When my dad left, gender roles were more traditional. And like millions of dads across the country, my dad's main role was to provide, protect, and guide his family. He was a wall between us and the harsh things in the world that had the potential to harm us. For many years, he made us feel safe. He was also the bringer of fun and daring, the one who spun us around until we staggered like drunk sailors after he set us down, the one who tossed the little ones high in the air, the one who gave us underdog pushes on the swing while my mom cautioned him and we screamed, "Higher, Daddy, higher." Since then, a cultural shift has occurred and the number of two-parent nuclear families began to decrease, giving way to more single-parent households, often led by women. Some consider these changes a breakdown of the family, while others welcome the freedom of broader roles. One could argue the pros and cons of this, but what can't be overlooked is the impact the absence of a father has on the health and well-being of his children. Statistics bear this out. 1 in 4 children is now raised without a father in the home. These kids are 4 times more likely to live in poverty than those kids raised with both parents. According to the National Fatherhood Initiative, the federal government spends $100 billion per year to help families without fathers. Lots more studies bring even more alarming news. 63% of kids growing up without dads have subjective psychological problems like depression, anxiety, phobias. Over half have lower grades in school, and nearly half show physical aggression toward their parents. According to Dr. Neil Coulter, girls whose parents divorced may grow up without the day-to-day experience of interacting with a man who is attentive, caring, and loving. The continuous sense of being valued and loved as a female seems to be an especially key element in the development that one is indeed lovable. Without this regular sense of nourishment, a girl's sense of being valued does not seem to thrive. Long-term effects of divorce on children, according to Neil Coulter, say that girls without present fathers are more likely to have earlier sexual activity and more likely to have multiple partners. They're more likely to have a teen pregnancy, and those who marry are 90% more likely to dissolve their own marriages. They are more likely to suffer from eating disorders and body image issues and to be abused by their husbands. Boys are more likely to struggle with aggression issues and delayed maturity when they grow up without a present father. They're more likely to act on their aggression and get in fights and become involved in criminal activity. They're also more likely to become addicted to drugs and alcohol than those children who are raised with both parents present. Gang affiliation is one way boys seek out a pseudo-family. Statistically, both men and women who grow up without a present father are much more likely to end up in prison. More alarming than even these grim statistics is the report by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services that finds that fatherless children are at a dramatically greater risk of suicide. In fact, 3 of 14 suicides occur in households where a parent has been absent. Most often, that parent is the father. In these studies, we see clearly that the presence or absence of a father for some children can sometimes be even a matter of life or death. In China, when a father leaves, children are not called children of divorce or children of a single-parent family. Instead, all of society identifies them as the left-behind child. This reflects the reality that most children grapple with in any culture during the leaving of a father. Whether the absence is by choice or not, it is the sense of being left behind that digs a wound and shapes the identity and the very essence of how a child sees him or herself. Futures change, and as we begin to understand, the changes are profound and life-altering. And for many children, when a father leaves, those changes are destructive or life-threatening. Even the psalmist in the Bible bends his heart in compassion to the child left behind when he says, "The Lord is father to the fatherless and defender of the widows." So what do we do? How do we help these children with broken hearts? And can we? How do we save the kids that are broken from the absence of a father? Is it possible that this profound absence doesn't have to define the future of the left-behind child? As I pondered this and how it related to me personally and the many, many people I know who were raised without a dad in their lives, I began to look, if not for remedies, at least for help. And I found it. Well, it's optimal for the health and well-being of all children to have the daily presence of a mom and a dad. There are people who can love and protect and guide children, taking on the role of absent father. These people can come in the form of stepdad or uncle or mentor who is committed to providing a stable model of masculinity and connection. I know a young man who was raised without a stable, permanent father. Alex fell in love eventually, and before he proposed to the love of his life, he sought out an older gentleman in his church. Alex expressed his future plans and his own fear that he would repeat the mistakes of his parents who had a conflicted relationship and divorced when he was young. The older gentleman and Alex met throughout Alex's engagement time and during the first years of his marriage. Across each other at a table in a coffee shop, Alex was taught and encouraged by the friendship of his mentor, and each week was privy to the marvelous example and wisdom of a man who helped him along the path. 5 years into his marriage, Alex is a committed, loving husband, and recently, a new father. He and his mentor still meet. Bruce Feiler gave a TED Talk titled The Council of Dads. In 2008, Feiler was diagnosed with a malignant bone cancer that had little hope for a cure. At the time, his twin daughters were only 3 years old. When Feiler contemplated leaving them behind, he asked, would they wonder who I was? Would they yearn for my approval, my love, my voice? He knew they would have family and friends to care for them, but he said they would not have me. They would not have their dad. He set out seeking a council of dads, a group of 6 friends, he said, to be me, to teach and love and guide and be present for his children when he couldn't. Fortunately, after a grueling treatment and surgery, Feiler is cancer-free, and it is likely his daughters will be raised with the gift of their present father. Perhaps more important than bringing fathers to children in need is nurturing and supporting existent absent fathers. While research shows the role of a father is unique and immensely valuable, our culture sends a different message. America is not known for highlighting the competency or value of fathers. If you look on TV, you'll see dads often portrayed as foolish and needing to be rescued by women. For example, in Everybody Loves Raymond, the main character is portrayed as a bumbling idiot, endured by his long-suffering wife. While the show is funny, it reinforces a stereotype of a father who is constantly trying to prove his worth to his family. Recently, the pendulum is starting to shift into a more realistic portrayal of dads, both absent and present. Shows like Parenthood, dads and moms both nurture and raise children knowing that they make mistakes along the way and hoping their best is good enough. The focus is on the children. Another way to help children who are raised without a father is to support the relationship with the absent father. Research shows that daily connections with two healthy parents are best for children. This isn't easy to achieve when a strange excuse me. This isn't easy to achieve when estranged parents live separately from their children, but it is possible. And technology is not a quality substitute for physical presence, but phones and FaceTime and Skyping, and can be ways to create daily connections. There are support groups available in many cities now for parents and often for parents who are absent from their children. Also, counseling and help in resolving hostility and conflict that can hamper shared parenting is available. From the perspective of the child, it's invaluable to have parents that communicate well with each other and are able to deal with issues that create stumbling blocks in facilitating easy access for the child with both parents. Culturally, we can be aware that the role of father or father figure is essential in helping a child feel secure, confident, and healthy. We can examine ourselves for our own cultural biases that may view fathers in a less than valuable light. We can work to protect and support the relationship between the children in our lives and their dads, those present or those gone. Estranged parents can commit to the well-being of the child above their own comfort. We can all take time to consider how very necessary our fathers are or the people who stand in their place. My own dad and I have found our way back to a relationship with each other. It isn't easy, even now, to overcome the decades of distance. But my dad is aging, in his 80s and with dementia, and I know there's not much time left. As his confusion thickens and he remembers me less, it seems my brother and I remember more. Our conversations are often peppered with reminiscence of our only childhood, our early childhoods. It seems new losses come daily now, in varying degrees, as my father forgets the things that we remember. There's a new sorrow now. We're letting go again, and in this slow robbery of my dad's mind, old wounds are reopened a bit. We bump against the reality of an imminent goodbye and the complexities and of the price that we paid for his absence. We grieve again, and our lives are reshaped. Perhaps we hope this time with more grace than when my dad left us the first time.